Which book were you supposed to do before the guide?
Not before the guide, after the guide. After the guide, when I went to America on the release of the guide, I think it created a little interest in Indo-American productions because number one, guide was really done in style in terms of production values, and I think even the acting was acceptable by any international standards. And they all got to know that here is a man who can co-produce with Americans and can speak the language and give them the nuance that they need in their country, besides giving the nuance to his own audience in his own country. And I was also very keen to get into the international market, because like it's one's ambition, because I had this country, I'd reached the saturation point. So the first thing was to look for some material in terms of literature that could go down in both the East and the West, written in English and known to the Americans. And there was a book called The Princes, written by Manohar Malgonkar, which at that moment had won the book award or something, and it was in the newspapers. And I read the book and I was sold to the book, because I think Manohar Malgonkar writes very, very well in terms of story writing, in terms of fiction, because there's a little, always the forward movement in his stories. They're very cinematic. He doesn't write very subjectively, which can drag at times, like an essay. So there was a tremendous movement, and the scene of the Maharajas is already known to the West. And that I thought was a good project to make. So I came back and I tried to locate Mr. Malgonkar. I found him, I got hold of him, he came to Bombay, we negotiated, I bought the rights also.
But it didn't work out.
It didn't work out. It didn't work out because it entailed international cast, and I tried for that also. In fact, I remember when I was in America, I was watching Ella Guinness perform on Broadway, and I sent him a note and I met him backstage, and I wanted him to do a role. And then some agent said, get hold of a continental actress. So I met some people in Rome. But then when you come back to India, the typical mentality here was to not to enthuse me on the project. Why go all the way to America and get people here and collaboration deal, this. Then a little time was being wasted. And then the desire for me to become a director was getting hold of me.
This evil within.
I gave it up.
The evil within, don't you think that was something, it didn't work out, it sort of?
Evil Within, I was the lead player in an international English picture produced by the Fox and made by a producer from Hong Kong. And I got roped in because I thought it was a good break. They had a Vietnamese actress in it. And the government of India, they had passed the picture, they passed the script. But at the 11th hour, when it went for censorship and the timing of release, they backed down. They said, we can't pass this because it has an opium dealing scene done in Jaipur. So they didn't allow it to be released, unfortunately.
R.K. Narayan didn't seem to like the guide, or that's what the controversy was.
I think it's wrong, because I had a letter from R.K. Narayan written to me from New York, because he was the first man to see the guide in New York, the English version, and he paid glowing tributes to the picture in that letter. Dave, I have seen the picture, it's beautifully made, and we should be proud of it. But after the picture was released, the English version, and people did not like it, they liked the Hindi version more, he backed out of his statement and wrote an article in the Life magazine. So it's okay, fine. He changed his mind.
We were talking about your newcomers. What happens when the media connects you with them? Does gossip affect an actor and his life?
It doesn't affect me. I can only talk of my personal view. But what is gossip? Gossip means gossip. If you take it as gossip, don't feel hurt, because it's just gossip. And gossip is likely to be forgotten. It's to be thrown into a waste paper basket. Because today what is news is going to be not news tomorrow. That's it. But sometimes with some actors, gossip helps. It builds them up. It puts them on a better promotional level. If they're linked up with somebody, if they're in the controversial news, it helps them. But I think for any strong man, gossip really they should, as long as gossip is light-hearted and and people don't hit you below the belt, I think should be accepted, because you are in the news. It's all gossipy. Movie making is gossipy. Let's face it. The more the gossip, the more the news about that film, the more that the controversy, the more the controversy, the more the talk about it, the more the talk about it, the more it runs.
So what about the talk about Zeenat Aman and you, which the magazines used to splash?
It was a good relationship between the star and the director, and Zeenat was a very fine person, and I think, we've built a very fine rapport. Star was our director, and it was great fun working with her, because she contributed. She's a very intelligent person, and very quick on the uptake, and very clever, a good actress, and I think I enjoyed working with her. So people talk, talk has no meaning as far as I'm concerned.
Did you enjoy working with Madhubala? Is she as great as we understand her to be today?
Past is always great for people, because past is nostalgic. When people are living in the present, they think of the past, and they're looking into the future. She was a cute, nice, good-looking girl, a little cold, statuesque type of beauty, very fair, giggling all the time, not very intelligent, but a good sport. That's about all. A reasonably good actress. And that was Madhubala. And I've worked with everybody. Everybody, they've had their own charm. You can't compare one with the other. Each one has her own strong points and her own weak points. Madhubala was pretty in a certain way, in a certain typical Indian way, कि बड़ी गोरी गोरी लड़की है और उसका बड़ा marble सा उसका चेहरा है. That's a sort of a feeling.
Did you enjoy doing that dance sequence in Kala Pani where you all dress up and in disguise or something?
Well, I've enjoyed everything that I've done. It's a fact. I mean, I wouldn't be doing otherwise. Kala Pani, I think Madhubala was in Kala Pani, and that was the first film and the only film she did for Navketan. And that was the time, I think, she was all the time being protected by her parents. She was not her independent self. Kala Pani was the time that she was growing out of her shell, breaking away from the barriers of the family, getting into the world in a more friendly way.
Okay, the big three in the 50s and the 60s were Raj Kapoor, Devanand and Dilip. What do you like about Raj Kapoor? What made him different? How come the trio existed?
I've never analyzed it. The trio existed because the trio was popular, that's all. That's my answer to it. Raj Kapoor had his own tremendous fan following. Dilip Kumar had a tremendous fan following. Even now he has it. And maybe I also had some fan following, which I have never tried to analyze, because again, analysis is going back and trying to find why. You're just working. Go ahead. Let people talk about you, good or bad. That's what matters, as long as you're there. But I think we were all in different molds. Raj Kapoor was a maker himself, and a very fine maker, and was literally obsessed with motion picture making. And he was a comic buffoon, a light-hearted guy on the screen, and he excelled in that. And Dilip Kumar, I think people loved him in tragic roles. He played with his voice and serious characters, Devdas and those types of pictures, and he was held, even now, they hold him in very high esteem. And I think they liked me in romantic, light roles, and trampish, singing songs, and hail fellow, well-met guy. So I think they were all different genres. I mean, you couldn't replace Dev with Raj or Raj with Dilip. We all had different slots in terms of popular images in people's minds, and we had no competition as such, because those who wanted Dev wanted Dev, those who wanted Dilip, they wanted Dilip, and those who wanted Raj, they wanted Raj. And I never did more than 4 or 5 pictures again. I kept on refusing. I always worked with newcomers. I preferred working with newcomers who became great directors later, and we made teams. If I worked with one director once, I repeated 6 times. We did 6 or 7 pictures together with the same person. because you start building a team, building rapport, and you understand each other's signals and requirements, which is very important.
Nobody ever tried to bring you three together?
A lot of times it was very tough. It needed a very, very clever script to put Raj and Dilip and Dev and to satisfy all the characters in one film. Very tough going. Nobody could do it. Because I think we had reached a stage of popularity where each one of us had to be satisfied with the roles offered to each one of us.
How did you choose Vahida for guide?
Rosie was a dancer and we needed a dancer. And Rosie, but Vahida was good looking and a star and a dancer, but could not speak English very well. So there was a little conflict between me and the director. So he needed somebody else. I needed Vahida because Vahida was a star and we were working together. So why shouldn't I put Vahida in an international picture? So I prevailed upon them, and then Pearl Buck, the late Pearl Buck, the Nobel laureate who was collaborating with the deal, she used to train her in English. It's a fact, every day for 2 hours. And it's one of Vahida's finest performances, because Vahida was a dancer and Rosie was a dancer in the book. So that worked.
What do you feel about that snake dance? Do you think it's one of the film's highlights?
In the English version, yes, it was, because it was very new for the Western audiences, the snake charmer and the snake dancing. But the Hindi version, it was okay because people know about it. But the Hindi version is not the English version. Every frame is different. It was a totally new script. In fact, people said, why are you making it? I said, well, that is it. I'm making it because I'm making it. I want to make it. And you have to do something mad in life to be able to achieve something at times. Because people tend to ridicule you on certain projects in the beginning, and then they start getting compromised to the idea, and then they start liking it, and then they start hailing you when the right results come. Sometimes they start with ridicule, which ends in liking ultimately. So when the Hindi version was being planned, right from the scratch, they thought Dave is mad, he's wasting his money. I never realized, because I was sold to the idea, and Goldie was sold to the idea. We want to make it, and now they call it a milestone. And supposing I had not made it, and I had gone after people's verdict. And then a lot of people kept writing to the Information Broadcasting Ministry. Okay, look, this is a book on adultery, and don't censor the picture. Don't let it go to the, don't pass it for the audiences. But again, if I do something with conviction, and I'm a citizen of this country, and I'm a responsible man, do you think I'll ever make a picture which is bad for my audiences? They don't realize that.
What did you find special about Vahida?
Her innocence, Indian charm, a typical innocent Indian charm. She's not at all westernized. She's very much a homebred girl, and that impression she creates on the screen.
In the foreign version, didn't she have to do a kiss with you?
I think there were one or two bold scenes which she agreed to do, because we had a nice professional rapport, and she understood the whole thing. She was flattered that she was doing the English version, and she cooperated.
How did that song come about? Aaj Fir Jeene Ki Tamanna. Do you remember shooting?
We shot in Udaipur. It became one of the highlights of that song of the guide. Jeene ki tamanna hai, marne ka irada hai. And in fact, the song was recorded here, sent to us in Udaipur, because we were filming non-stop, and it became a rage, and it was great fun. As Vahida did very well in it. And we shot in the streets of Udaipur with people participating, and they were enjoying it. The people who were participating were enjoying, and that showed that the people ultimately in the audience would enjoy the same sequence on the screen.
Wasn't Raj Khosla supposed to do the guide? How did Vijay Anand come into the Hindi version?
I picked Raj Khosla because Raj Khosla was a colleague and I'm a sentimentalist. I thought I'd give him a break for this picture, but he just couldn't do it. I think he was either a little careless or couldn't grab the whole plot properly, and he then started showing a little reluctance in terms of his inability. think I cannot cope with it. He was very honest with me. And then Chetan was supposed to do it. And Chetan, and in fact Chetan and Tad, the English director, Tad Daniel Resky, they were together in Udaipur, and the whole concept was to do the English shot first, and then let Chetan take over and do the Hindi shot according to his requirements. That also did not work out because Chetan wanted a different angle. So there's a clash of egos, two directors on the sets. It never works. It will never work. So when people think of collaboration deal with two directors, take my word, the film can never be good because the two directors, two minds working on it. It has to be done by one man who understands both the audiences, the Western audience and the home market. So Chetan also was a little unhappy because more time would be lost, and there was a little tension and a little controversial debate. I want it this way, and the actors were being, they got a little confused whether to listen to Tad or listen to Chetan. Then Chetan all of a sudden got a break, and he got his finances and a clearance from the Defense Ministry on a film called Hakikat. So he also very politely, very gracefully said, Dev, okay, do you mind if I walk out of it? I said, okay. Then I said, okay, Tad, let's do the English version. Leave the Hindi version to my own destiny, my own decision. And I started working only on the English version. I packed the unit back to America, and then I prevailed upon Goldie, because Goldie was intelligent. Goldie, who did the guide, he was very intelligent, a very fine young director, and Goldie had to be convinced. And Goldie again told me, we have to change the script to suit the Indian audience, which I agreed. And we changed the entire script, and the whole film was reshot right from the scratch. It was a mad thing to do, but again, all great things sometimes have to be little mad. You have to be little mad to be able to achieve something which is trendy. You have to be obsessed with it, creatively.
What about that conscience scene where you talk to your conscience? Do you think that worked?
In the guide, it did. I think everything worked in the guide because that clarified for the Indian audience a certain complex. Because the Indian audience has certain taboos in their minds, taboos of social behavior and relationships. But if they feel convinced, then they go all out for it. They have to be convinced that this man can fall in love with this girl who's somebody's wife, and it need not be necessarily called adultery. It had to be done this way by this man. Justification for a certain act. Same with the climax. And people lapped it up. And it's not the book, nor it is the English version. So, but the base is R-canine, the Hindi guide is not R-canine, not all the time. Of course, he was taken into confidence and he agreed. I mean, we were not, we didn't have bad etiquette. In all right, in earnest, we went to him. It's your book, your novel. We want to change it. Please allow us. He very gracefully allowed us. He was very good, very graceful about it.
So to Devanand speaking to, was it a difficult scene, this you speaking to yourself? Could you repeat this, me speaking to my
Every scene is
conscience?
difficult and every scene is easy. If you have grabbed it, nothing is difficult. If you have understood a situation, it's not at all difficult. Then you enjoy performing. It's difficult, a situation is difficult, that the scene of the duo, the two characters talking to each other. It's difficult at the first stage. But when you've understood something, nothing is difficult. Then you performing, because it's there. You grabbed it. You've known it by heart and on your fingertips, in your mind.
Okay, last question of the day. What was Guru Dutt like as a friend? Guru Dutt.
Guru Dutt was a very withdrawn man, mostly in his shell, obsessed with filmmaking at that moment, not a very great talker, and loved motion picture making, made good pictures, made them well, a tremendous sense of rhythm and a tremendous sense of music, because he was a dancer also. He had taken some dance training under Uday Shankar in Almora. And with that background, he wanted to make some good pictures, and he made some good pictures, though in his own motion pictures, he was a bit of a waster, because he would shoot something, then reshoot it, then throw it away and shoot it again. And then at the back of his mind, he was also a little ambitious in terms of acting. He wanted to act in his own pictures, which he did. So in the ultimate analysis, but he was melancholic. He could not take his defeat. And the moment defeat came to him, he was shattered. And he went down and down and down till he killed himself. He made some very fine pictures. And he made the most ambitious picture of his career in Kaagaz Ke Phool. And I think he could not take the defeat of that picture. It flopped. I think it was hooted out in the first show. There was a very fine film. And he could not, after that, get up to make another motion picture. That was Gurudutt, which is sad, because a motion picture maker has got to be man of steel. If you are making hits, you got to make flops, and you better take it. If you cannot take a flop, you should not be a motion picture maker. You cannot have success after success after success in no profession, but you got to be in the race all the time if you're talented, and nobody should break you down. If you're broken down as a man, as a worker, then you're finished. No, you should not break down, because you should be. If you make a film, don't have very high expectations of its big success. You'll be let down. Nor you should feel depressed when it's a flop. You've done your best. You've done your work with tremendous calculations in your own mind in terms of an audience, all types of audiences, teenagers, housewives, intellectuals, critics, cigarette wallas, pan bidi wallas, tonga wallas, urchins, music, dance, sex, romance, action. You have made your calculations. You've slogged for 17 hours a day on a motion picture. You enjoyed making it. If it's a flop, why should you go down as a man who's defeated? Okay, rise above it, do another one. If that is the philosophy, I think you should never feel dejected.